Tiffany Henyard, once regarded as a rising star in Illinois politics and the self-proclaimed super mayor of Dalton, Illinois, experienced a dramatic and devastating downfall that ultimately shattered her political career. Earning nearly $300,000 annually from her dual roles as mayor and township supervisor, Henyard appeared to have a bright future in government. Her commanding presence and growing influence within the community painted the image of a successful leader. However, beneath the surface, a series of financial mismanagement issues, public disputes, and personal hardships began to unravel, leading to the abrupt and tragic collapse of her career. Henyard's financial troubles escalated to the point where she was unable to make rent payments on a home she leased from Jeanette Hall, a former friend and political supporter. Hall, who had trusted Henyard and viewed her as a political ally, agreed to rent her 3-bedroom home to Henyard and her boyfriend, Kamal Woods, in the year 2021. At that time, Hall had no reason to suspect any problems with the arrangement. Henyard, as a rising political figure, seemed like a responsible and trustworthy tenant. However, by December of the year 2024, Hall found herself confronted with an alarming total of $5,000 in overdue rent and accumulated penalties. Henyard and Woods had failed to make any rent payments since August of that year, leaving Hall in a precarious financial situation. Struggling to cover the missing payments, Hall faced significant financial strain, which deeply affected her own economic stability. The eviction process became inevitable, marking yet another chapter in Henyard's ongoing personal and financial struggles. Her personal hardships, combined with an increasing number of legal issues and questionable leadership decisions, further damaged Henyard's public reputation. Despite her substantial salary and previous political success, it became increasingly evident that Henyard was struggling to manage both her personal finances and her professional responsibilities. Reports began to emerge, alleging that Henyard had been recklessly overspending on unnecessary government programs and making dubious financial decisions. With accusations of mismanaging taxpayer funds and engaging in irresponsible spending on extravagant initiatives, these concerns aligned with the negative trajectory of her political career. Henyard's rise in local politics had been swift, but as her financial troubles deepened, so did her involvement in various scandals. Allegations of personal misconduct and public outbursts began raising serious concerns about her leadership abilities. What was once considered a promising and influential political career quickly became overshadowed by accusations of poor management and mounting legal battles. Henyard's credibility suffered a significant blow as her personal financial problems mirrored the very same issues she faced in her professional life. Public perception shifted dramatically, and what was once seen as a strong and commanding political figure was now increasingly viewed as a liability. The culmination of these financial and legal troubles led to Henyard being held responsible for Dalton's growing fiscal crisis. With the town's budget deficit nearing $5 million and mounting allegations of wasted taxpayer money, the eviction proceedings were merely the latest development in a much broader saga of financial mismanagement. Henyard's inability to balance her personal and professional obligations became increasingly evident. Despite the widespread controversy surrounding her, Henyard remained defiant, portraying herself as a victim of a corrupt political system rather than acknowledging the mounting evidence against her. During a live broadcast on social media, Henyard aggressively dismissed her critics and threatened legal action against those who opposed her, further alienating herself from both the public and her political colleagues. With public trust rapidly deteriorating and legal challenges looming, her political future appeared increasingly uncertain. Though she still retained a small base of loyal supporters, her once untouchable image had been irreparably damaged, making any hope for a political comeback appear increasingly unlikely. The combination of financial mismanagement, legal troubles, and questionable government dealings left little room for Henyard to rehabilitate her reputation. Her once promising political career had become mired in scandal, and as more information surfaced regarding her alleged use of public funds for personal expenses, public outrage continued to grow. Despite these controversies, Henyard adamantly insisted on her innocence, claiming that the allegations against her were part of a politically motivated plot. However, these claims did little to assuage the growing frustration among Dalton residents, who were left to bear the consequences of her actions. The situation in Dalton and its surrounding areas had become a glaring symbol of Henyard's broader political failures. as residents struggled with the economic and governmental repercussions of her leadership. At this point, it remained unclear whether Henyard would ever be able to recover from the damage inflicted upon her reputation, or whether she could salvage what remained of her political future. As additional legal and financial troubles continued to surface, her prospects for a return to power appeared increasingly bleak. Henyard's dramatic fall from grace played out in an extremely public manner, with one of the most damaging aspects of her downfall stemming from her contentious relationship with her landlord, Jeanette Hall. Initially, Hall had intended to rent her 3-bedroom, 2-bath home to another family. However, Henyard allegedly intervened, insisting that she required the property. This took place after Henyard had already become embroiled in public controversies related to financial mismanagement, multiple public outbursts, and a failure to meet her basic obligations. Problems that had already begun casting a shadow over her once promising political career. In the year 2021, Henyard and her boyfriend, Kamal Woods, signed a lease to rent Hall's home. At the time, Hall had no reason to doubt Henyard's ability to uphold her rental agreement. As an emerging political figure, Henyard seemed to be a stable and responsible tenant. However, what initially appeared to be a straightforward rental arrangement quickly devolved into a serious dispute. By December of the year 2024, Henyard and Woods had not made a single rent payment since August, leaving Hall with an unmanageable financial burden. This failure to pay rent ultimately led to a legal eviction battle, further compounding the numerous challenges facing Henyard. As Henyard's scandals continued to mount, it became clear that her once promising political career had been thoroughly derailed. The financial mismanagement, legal disputes, and public controversies that had defined her tenure as mayor had finally caught up with her, leaving little hope for redemption. While she continued to insist on her innocence and portray herself as a victim, the overwhelming evidence against her made it increasingly difficult for the public to believe in her leadership. With growing frustration among residents, a widening financial crisis in Dalton, and intensifying legal battles, Henyard's political future remained uncertain. However, one thing had become undeniable: her time as a rising political star had come to an end. In a dire financial situation, despite Jeanette Hall's repeated attempts to resolve the matter amicably, Tiffany Henyard and Kamal Woods refused to pay, citing rising property taxes as the reason for their failure to cover the increased rent. Hall, who had depended on the steady income from the property, suddenly found herself facing a financial crisis of her own. The situation worsened when Hall claimed that a handyman had changed the locks and altered the garage code, preventing her from accessing the house to retrieve her personal belongings. Additionally, Hall reported that the Cook County Sheriff's Office made several attempts to serve Henyard with eviction papers at her Village Hall residence, but Henyard refused to cooperate, further complicating the legal process. What had initially started as an unfortunate financial dispute quickly escalated into a prolonged and painful legal battle for Hall. It was a shocking betrayal. She had once considered Henyard a close friend and trusted political ally, offering her support in past campaigns and publicly endorsing her leadership. However, by late September, in the year 2024, after numerous failed attempts to settle the matter, Hall's faith in Henyard was completely shattered. With no other recourse, Hall eventually filed a lawsuit to recover the unpaid rent and reclaim her property. What made the situation even more troubling was the broader pattern of behavior that this eviction represented. Henyard's defiance and refusal to take responsibility for her actions were not limited to the rental dispute. This behavior reflected a much larger narrative of both personal and political mismanagement in every aspect of her life. Henyard had developed a habit of deflecting blame and portraying herself as a victim of unfair circumstances rather than acknowledging her role in the escalating problems. This combative and defiant approach, which had occasionally worked to her political advantage in the past, only worsened the growing frustration and mistrust that surrounded her leadership. At the same time that her personal struggles were unraveling, Henyard's political career also began to collapse. In early 2024, Henyard suffered a devastating political setback when she was removed from her position as supervisor of Thornton Township. This followed a contentious Democratic caucus in which Henyard lost her bid for re-election amid allegations of misconduct. Henyard arrived at the Homewood, Illinois caucus, wearing a bright pink pantsuit, Exuding confidence, but tensions quickly escalated between her and her political opponent. Henyard demanded legal action, accusing State Senator Napoleon Harris of manipulating the caucus by allowing his supporters to enter the venue while blocking her own. Henyard firmly believed that if her supporters had been allowed to attend, she would have secured the nomination. However, Harris and his legal team denied these accusations, asserting that the caucus had been conducted fairly and in strict accordance with established protocol. The caucus concluded after just 7 minutes, with Henyard being unanimously removed as the party's nominee for township supervisor. This political defeat marked what appeared to be the definitive end of Henyard's ambitions in public office, and the public fallout from her removal only further highlighted the deepening rift between her and the Democratic Party. The humiliation of her political ousting, combined with the larger scandal surrounding her personal finances and eviction battle, painted a bleak picture of a once prominent political leader who had enjoyed widespread support, but was now viewed as a liability. Henyard's defiant responses and confrontational attitude, rather than helping to mend the situation, only served to widen the gap between her and both her political colleagues and the community she had once led. The eviction saga, political missteps, and public outbursts that followed left Henyard with little support and severely damaged her once promising career. By early 2025, Henyard's political future, which had once seemed full of potential, lay in ruins. Her public disgrace at the caucus, coupled with overwhelming evidence of financial mismanagement, left her unable to regain the trust of the community or her political peers. Henyard's re-election campaign for mayor of Dalton, which she announced shortly after her caucus loss, was quickly overshadowed by mounting concerns about her leadership and integrity. Reports surfaced detailing her questionable actions while in office, including the misuse of public funds for personal expenses and an alarming lack of oversight regarding government spending. Henyard's story became one of financial mismanagement, public scandal, and political turmoil, leaving Dalton residents questioning the leadership they had once trusted. The political future of Tiffany Henyard, once bright and full of promise, now seemed all but extinguished. Despite her continued defiance and repeated claims of innocence, it appeared highly unlikely that Henyard would ever regain the public's trust. As additional legal and financial issues surfaced, her chances of making a political comeback in Illinois dwindled even further. The downfall of Henyard stood as a stark reminder of how swiftly a political career can unravel when a leader fails to manage both their public responsibilities and personal affairs. Tiffany Henyard's tenure as mayor of Dalton and supervisor of Thornton Township, once marked by ambition and high aspirations, ultimately became overshadowed by scandal, financial mismanagement, and allegations of personal enrichment at the Iowa taxpayers' expense. Investigations revealed that Henyard had used public funds to finance extravagant personal luxuries, including first-class airfare, fine dining, and even beauty services. These lavish expenditures were particularly shocking given the severe financial struggles plaguing the very community she had been elected to serve. However, the most alarming revelation came when it was discovered that Henyard had used a village-issued credit card to make nearly $443,000 worth of purchases on Amazon in a single day, none of which had any apparent connection to official government business. This reckless and exorbitant spending fueled widespread accusations of abuse of power and misappropriation of public funds. The scale of Henyard's financial misconduct, combined with her refusal to accept accountability, only served to deepen the public's outrage. Once a rising star in Illinois politics, Henyard's legacy had now become one of corruption, scandal, and political downfall. Her story remains a cautionary tale of how unchecked ambition, financial irresponsibility, and an unwillingness to take responsibility can lead to the complete and utter collapse of a once promising political career.